That's okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Look at the audio. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much to each of you. It has been a long, difficult year plus that I have spent speaking to a little circular space, a little dot, a little camera on my iPad. So it's very nice to see some faces live. I wanted to talk to you about what it's like to be visibly Jewish in the workplace. I am very, very visibly Jewish in the workplace. I just came from a trial lawyers conference where I spoke, and I lost track at the number of people that came over to me and made a comment. One person asked me, am I going to find a synagogue? Are they going to get you kosher food? It was very nice, but they found it, I guess, curious. It was interesting, so they asked about it. And one person said to me before asking the question, he said, I hope it's okay to ask you this. And he asked me something, Jewish related. I said, this is an invitation to ask questions like this. Like, if I'm going to be sensitive with this on my head about if somebody asking me a question about Judaism, then I really shouldn't be wearing it. So I grew up in Philadelphia. I went to day school. I went to a day school called Beth Jacob. I'm not making that up. I'm not pandering. That's where I went to school. I am a Beth Jacob graduate. I always joke around. My wife is the principal at the Beis Yaakov in Passaic. I believe it's the only Beis Yaakov where the principal is not a Beis Yaakov graduate, but her husband is. So I think we have that. I think we have that distinction. So the first time in my career that I felt the friction, the potential for it, not just the potential for it, but the actual friction between my Judaism and my chosen career happened very, very early. In day school, I wasn't particularly inspired. I'm sure it was my own fault. But after college, in between Columbia and as an undergrad and Harvard for law school, I decided I'm going to give this Judaism thing one more shot. I'm going to go to Israel, and I fortunately stumbled into the right place at Or Sameach and fell in love with it, with everything about it, the study and the ritual and the like. And so I went from, I guess, being more Jew-ish to Jewish, like very, very intensely passionate about it. I was very proud to be wearing my yarmulke, which I always wore earlier in my collegiate career, but often if it would get in the way of a social life on the way into the frat party, it suddenly would disappear and go into my back pocket. But in law school, I showed up newly married after 2 years in yeshiva, gotten very serious, so I got married, and I sit down for my first class at Harvard Law School, and the professor introduces himself, and he says, how many of you have seen the movie Paper Chase? Every hand goes up. How many of you have read the book 1L? Every hand goes up. Paper Chase, famous movie and TV series about Harvard Law School. The star was this professor who would absolutely humiliate people, call on them, and then just destroy them. It was like there'd be a puddle left over, like the Wicked Witch of the West. 1L was Scott Turow's first book, wherein he also described what it was like to be a 1L, a first-year law student at Harvard Law School. And he talked about how there'd be some wonderful, heartwarming situations where, like, the professor would come in on the first day, first class, find 3 people and say, I want you 3 to look at each other because by the time we get to graduation, only one of you is still going to be here. Because 2 out of 3 would fail. He said, I want you all to know, I'm not gonna lie, there may well have been a time when it was like that here. It no longer is. We're not here to intimidate you. We're not here to harass you. We're not here to embarrass you. We're here to educate you. Sometimes we may even entertain you. So relax. And you could feel in the room like, okay, that sounds good. He says, however, we're going to use the Socratic method. It's named after Socrates, the Greek philosopher. I'm going to ask a question. Then I'm going to ask for a volunteer. He's going to call on somebody. And that person's going to give an answer. I'm going to ask another question. And I'm thinking, I don't think Socrates invented that. I think we did, but fine, whatever. Give Socrates the credit. He's okay, so let's begin your legal education. So I'm thinking to myself right then and there, I don't want to be the first guy called on. I've been in yeshiva the last 2 years. I'm a little out of practice in my secular academic career. I don't want to be the first guy called on. There was a guy 2 years ahead of me in law school. I used to see him in the gym. Stupidly, I never thought to take my basketball and a Sharpie and have him sign it. If I had had him sign it, I would have had a basketball signed by the future President of the United States of America. I didn't know that dude playing ball, Barry Obama, was going to become the president of the year. Like, who knew, okay? So maybe Obama, and others like him, maybe they had their hand up, calling me. I don't want to be called on. So I am engaging in the time-tested way of not getting called on. Don't make any eye contact. because if you make eye contact with the professor, you might look eager, and then he may call on you. So I'm not making any eye contact. I'm looking down. I'm going to write the question down maybe, or just, I don't know what I'm pretend to be writing. I am looking down. He says, okay, and he's pacing. He says, who can tell me? What did the Smith court say about non-mutual defensive collateral estoppel? And I see that when he stops, I'm sitting in the second row of this beautiful amphitheater, and I can see his shadow above my notebook. And I'm thinking, this may not end well. And sure enough, he says, how about you, Mr. Jew? Now, it was like Korach, like the earth opened and I fell in. He made that whole speech. Like he said it was going to embarrass us. He calls me Mr. Jew because I have a yarmulke. Like, I can't. This is crazy. And isn't that discrimination? How's he even allowed to do that? I'm thinking, like, I don't even remember the question. All of a sudden, the guy sitting directly in front of me starts answering the question. An Asian fellow, Thomas Jew, J-O-O. I admit, to quote the Sarnamashkim, Chata'ayani Maskerium, I recall my sins today. For sure, during the 2.5 seconds it took Tom Jew to clear his throat and start answering the question, I absolutely was thinking to myself, why did I have to wear my yarmulke? I could have worn my Phillies hat, my Eagles hat. Why did I have to wear my yarmulke? And I regretted it for the first and last time. The only time that I can remember in my career regretting the decision to be openly Jewish and to show my Judaism. I've had countless interactions, some of them hilarious, some of them a little ridiculous throughout my career. When I went into big firm practice before I joined the family business, representing injury victims. And so when I was in big firm practice, I'm a lawyer for all of, I don't know, 6 minutes, 2 months. And it's the winter. And Shabbos starts at like 4:10. So I'm gonna have to leave the office at like 2 o'clock. That's pretty early on a Friday. So I realized this. I better warn the corporate partner for whom I'm working on a deal that I'm going to disappear early on Friday. So on like Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm not going to tell him at Friday an hour before, oh, by the way, I hope you remember I'm leaving now. Oh, no, I didn't remember. It would have been nice to remind me. I go to him, and I say, I just want to remind you, I'm an observant Jew. And he says, yeah, I know that. And I said, I just want to remind you, I need to leave early on Friday for the Sabbath. He said, when do you need to leave? I said, well, it's 25 hours long. It starts at sundown on Friday evening, and then it ends an hour after sundown Saturday night. So it starts a little after 4. I'm going to have to leave around 2 o'clock. So I just thought I would let you know in case you need somebody to replace me on the team. So he thinks for a second. He says, wait, which deal are you working on? Right. He says, where are we now? It's pretty close to closing. I think that deal will probably finish, probably Friday night. But probably not until like 2, 3 in the morning. So let me ask you a question. Could you work until 2 or 3 in the morning? We'll put you in a car, send you home. Could you then start the Sabbath at, let's say, 3 or 4 a.m. and keep it until Sunday morning until 4 or 5 a.m.? So, those 25 hours, okay? And remember, I've been a lawyer like a few minutes, in a couple of months. It's very intimidating. He's a senior partner in a firm. And the only thing I could think to tell him was, okay, that, So I explained to him, I said, you're familiar with the story in the Bible of creation? He said, yeah. I said, how God created the world in 6 days? Yeah. And then he rested? Yes. I said, well, it's not negotiable. Like, I have to start the rest period when he rested, which is at sundown on the 6th day. So I can't. If I would, I could. Some things are flexible. This is not one of them. His demeanor totally changed. He said, I'm so sorry. I would never ask you to compromise your religious beliefs. I just thought maybe, I said, it's an ingenious question. You don't have to apologize. And if I could, then I would. There are certain times I don't like to go into a non-kosher restaurant, but that's why Hashem invented Diet Coke and a fruit plate. Sometimes, you might be in that situation. There's some flexibility. Staying and working on Shabbos, there's really no flexibility. A different time at that same firm, I'm at the holiday party. It's really an Xmas party, but they call it a holiday party. They got me and one other fellow in the firm who kept kosher food. So I'm at the kosher food area, whatever the 2 plates worth of kosher food, great, I eat. And then another fellow comes over, also a senior partner, and he's Jewish. And he says to me, Harry, can you do me a favor? He says, I just got to run to the to the restroom. Can you just hold my plate for a second? I said, sure. So I reach forward to take the plate, and he starts handing it to me, and I look. There aren't many foods that are recognizably not kosher. Shrimp is one of them. Okay? It's a plate of shrimp. So I recoil in horror. I pull my hand back, and I say, I'm so sorry, I can't help. I can't hold that. He says, what do you mean? I said, it's shrimp, it's not kosher. He said, Rothenberg, I'm not asking you to eat it. Just hold my plate while I run to the John. I said, now I have to explain Morris Iron. Well, the problem is, if there's another Jewish person in the firm, and they're going to see me holding the plate of shrimp, then they're going to think it must be mock shrimp, because Rothenberg can't be holding shrimp, so therefore that must mean that that plate of shrimp over there must be kosher, so I can he's, you know what, spare me the time you to lecture, it's fine, I'll find somebody else to, okay, it can happen, fine. When I switched over into the family business, the first very significant case that I handled involved a fellow who was crippled, pinned in between two cars, extraordinary negligence of the driver. She thought she was hitting the brake when she was hitting the gas. 23 surgeries. And so we ended up settling the case over the course of 2 days in the courtroom. The judge gave us 2 days worth of his time for the settlement conference. So, and the offer was going from 1 to 2, I think it was up to, it eventually settled for I think $6.25 million. When it was around 2 or 3 million after the first day of the settlement conference, we're walking out of court, and the main defense attorney, Irishman, noticed, because he was a trial lawyer, we were supposed to notice everything, he had noticed that there were 2 people in the courtroom with all the lawyers and the adjusters, must have been a dozen people in the courtroom. 2 of them were wearing yarmulkes. I was obviously one of them. The other one was the judge. We were in Brooklyn. It was an Orthodox Jewish judge. He's wearing a yarmulke. So we're walking out, and the Irishman, Jim Baker, says to me, he goes, Rothenberg, I got to tell you something. If I had known that the judge was going to be wearing one of those beanies, I would have worn one also. I said, Jim, that's the difference between me and you. I did my homework on this case. Why do you think I've been wearing this thing on my head? Okay, so it can be humorous, but it can also put you in situations where you've got to remember, and I'm very thankful the way the Rav introduced me, that you know, my client is always, no matter who my client is on an individual case, at the end of the day, I have another client, and it's the man upstairs, because that's who I'm representing. So I'll tell you a story on that issue. I represented the estate of a woman who went out at night for a power walk in Manhattan, 65th and Madison. The little man turned white, so she starts walking, she's got the right of way. And a bus comes from over her right shoulder and makes a left turn. So she has no chance. She can't see it. It's coming from behind her. So the bus hits her, kills her, and keeps going. There's one eyewitness. No cameras. This is now I'm sure we would have 9 different camera angles. Back then, this is many, many years ago, there was no cameras. We canvassed everywhere, no cameras. There's one eyewitness. He told the police officer, it was a blue and white bus. Oh, that's helpful. Let's see which bus companies in New York are blue and white. There's the City of New York, its own buses are blue and white. Greyhound's blue and white. Trailways is blue and white. Academy's blue and white. Bolt at the time is blue and white. Okay, practically every bus company is blue and white, right? So we send investigator after investigator. Just which company? I don't care, just pick a company, okay? Here's the difference. If we don't find the bus company, the only thing that we can go after is her husband's insurance policy to the limits of his uninsured motorist coverage. You can go home tonight or tomorrow, take a look at your policy. Buy as much uninsured motorist coverage as you can for situations like this. He had $250,000 worth of uninsured motorist coverage, which is actually a decent amount, but not for this case. Because if I can find the bus company, they have massive amounts of coverage, because bus companies know typically when a bus hits a person or another car, usually the bus wins. So they have massive amounts of coverage. If I can find the bus company, I can ask the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to award an amount of money for her conscious pain of suffering, limited, she was dead at the scene, but there must have been some suffering, and I can ask for her husband's loss of consortium, lost his wife, no children, lost his wife, and I can ask for pecuniary loss, it's a fancy word for money, lost wages. At the time, she was working on a street in Lower Manhattan. You may have heard of the street. It's called Wall Street. Anybody ever heard of that street? Trading bonds, making $1 million a year. 42 years old. So ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let's just be conservative. Let's assume she would have worked another 20 years, okay? 20 years, forget cost of living increase, forget bonuses, forget raises, just the $1 million that she was making. 20 years, $1 million a year. And then will you add another $1 million for her limited but significant conscious pain and suffering and her husband's loss of consortium? Does that sound reasonable? $21 million? My fee, if I get that, which I think I would have gotten, my fee is 1/3. So I can divide any number by 3. It's very weird. The bigger the number, the quicker I can do it. I'm not sure why that is. So $21 million, my fee is going to be $7 million. $250,000, my fee is going to be $83,333. Of course, the client's getting 2/3 of that, right? You're talking about $14 million versus $166,000. So all I need to do is figure out which bus company. Now, don't you think, I've only been speaking for a few minutes, but don't you think I'm persuasive enough that I could have sat down with that guy, mano a mano, and said to him, sir, you're the only hope. You're the only eyewitness. You're the only chance that this man has of getting some closure, some justice for what happened to his wife. Just tell us, which bus company? And the answer is, of course not. I sent an ex-FBI guy. I sent an ex-state trooper. I sent trained interrogators to the guy, and either he didn't know or wasn't going to cooperate. But what if I had gone to him and said, isn't there anything I can do to refresh your recollection? Isn't there something that would help make you remember, right? Like, how much would it have cost me? The guy did not live in a nice area. $1,000 and get $3, $5, $10. Let's make it $10,000 in $100 bills in an envelope. You don't think he would have suddenly? You know what? It just hit me. It was definitely Academy, unless you prefer it to be Trailways, because I can make it Trailways, right? You don't think he would have sworn on a large stack of Bibles? Absolutely, Trailways. So what was the problem? And remember, I'm going to go from a fee of $83,000 to a fee of $7 million. So here's the problem. I know that if I do that, it'll probably be successful, chances are. But there's always that small chance that when we get the deposition, whoever the lawyer is on the other side, even if it's the worst lawyer in the city, is going to say to him, you told the cop blue and white, and then you told Rothenberg that it was Academy. What happened? So hopefully he's going to say, I remembered, right? I mean, remember, I paid good money for that testimony. But suppose he says, I cannot tell a lie. Mr. Rothenberg gave me $10,000 in cash. So here's the problem. The problem is that A, I may get disbarred for a period of time or suspended from the practice of law. The bigger problem is that it's a tremendous disgrace for my firm, which has worked very hard for its name in the legal community. But the biggest problem is that we have now disgraced the Jewish people. Because I guarantee you that when they put me in jail or censure me or suspend me, etc., and they put a picture in the paper, they are not going to put a picture in the paper of me playing in my Sunday morning softball league. They're going to find a picture with me with my tefillin on and holding the Torah. Okay, that's what they are going to find when they go. So how do I know that? Here's how I know that. I'll give you some examples. There was an incident wherein Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, found himself in a very, very embarrassing, compromising position. And so the USA Today wrote an article about it. And here's the article. Robert Kraft, accused of, I don't even want to say what he was accused of, gave hundreds of millions to charitable causes. A little weird, caught my eye. It's kind of just a weird, like, what is this article about? It's weird, okay? So here we go. I'll read you this, some excerpts. Weeks ago, before Robert Kraft won his 6th Super Bowl as owner of the Patriots, he was awarded perhaps a greater honor. The Genesis Prize is given to leaders of Jewish heritage who have attained international renown in their chosen fields and have made a significant contribution to improving the world. I'm going to skip a little bit. A Democrat, he is a longtime friend of President Donald Trump. He visited the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh last year following the mass shooting there that killed 11. A vocal supporter of Israel, Kraft has taken NFL players to the Jewish state on trips sponsored by the league. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is scheduled to present the prize. Kraft also supports Judaic studies programs at Brandeis University, the alma mater of his late wife, and has supported Jewish programs at Columbia, his own alma mater. What is the point of this article? So I sent this to a friend of mine who is a huge Patriots fan, who I knew was going to get as aggravated as I was at this article, and he wrote a letter to the author of this hit piece. And here is what he wrote. He wrote, nice job of revealing yourself as a classic anti-Semite. Next time, make it easier. Just right. Bob Kraft, accused of whatever, is a Jew. I think that would do the job just as effectively and require fewer words. Keep up the good work. Okay? Needless to say, this did not get printed. Okay? It gets better. We know that Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, got himself in trouble. And so here's a little piece from Reuters. Trump's former lawyer heads to U.S. prison that offers matzo ball soup and full-time rabbi. I'm not making this up. This sounds like an art, like out of The Onion. This is not a satirical piece. This is an actual article that appeared in U.S. newspapers. Here we go. Ready? With a menu that includes matzo ball soup and gefilte fish, as well as a full-time rabbi, the U.S. President Donald Trump's former personal lawyer will spend the next 3 years as unique in the federal system. The 52-year-old Cohen will be housed in dorm-like accommodations at the facility's minimum security camp, which prison consultants say has become a destination for Jewish inmates due to its proximity to New York City Jewish and upstate New York's Orthodox Jewish enclaves. He's going to what I like to refer to as, quote, Jewish heaven, said so-and-so, founder of Wall Street Prison Consultants. It's a jail, by the way. Jewish heaven, right? Here we go. Jack Donson, former manager of the prison, who now runs a prison consulting firm, said the camp was, quote, a great place for white-collar Jewish guys. Unlike most federal prisons, which periodically bring in part-time contract rabbis, Otisville is a full-time rabbi. Another thing that sets Otisville apart is the food. The availability for kosher food is much greater. The commissary menu advertises matzo ball soup, gefilte fish, and rugelach, alongside Doritos, tortilla chips, and Diet Sprite soda. I don't know. Kosher items are marked throughout with the letter K. The point is that when a Jew does something wrong, that is newsworthy, right? We're always surprised, like, why does Israel get such awful coverage? And what is going on? Why is it that so other countries can engage in so much worse human rights abuses? I'm not saying Israel does at all. Oh, but why do they have it in for us? Because you can't have it both ways. If you're the Jewish people, you're going to get more attention. When Iran commits human rights abuses, that is dog bites man. It's not newsworthy. That's just de rigueur. But if the Jewish state engages in something that could even be, that's close to the edge, where you even the appearance of impropriety, that's man bites dog. That's newsworthy. So of course they're always going to be looking at us. They're always going to have their eyes on us because we're representing. We have to constantly remember that. There is another story that I like to tell, and I'm convinced that when because people will say to me sometimes, so maybe I don't want to represent God. Maybe I don't want to wear that yarmulke. Maybe I don't want people to know that I'm Jewish. No, they tend to find out. They really tend to find out. It's not something that good luck trying to hide it, but they will find out. So it's tough to tell the story over because it's gut-wrenching, but I think it's an important one to share. So back in the 1970s, there was a radical group of, I forget if they were revolutionaries or counter-revolutionaries. I don't know what they're revolting against. I don't think it had anything to do with tea being thrown in tax on tea in Boston Harbor. They were revolting. So against something government related. So they were called MOVE. It's a group of people. They barricaded themselves in a building, walking around in paramilitary gear, carrying assault rifles. Wouldn't let anybody in or out of their compound. Frank Rizzo was the mayor. He said, what the blank is this? And he sent in the SWAT team. SWAT team kicked in the front door, and they broke a few bones, and they arrested them, and that was that. In the 80s, they're back. MOVE is back. And so this time, they're a similar situation. They're in their compound, not letting anybody in or out, terrorizing the neighborhood, blasting bullhorns at all times of day and night. But now the mayor is Wilson Good. And Wilson Good's very different than Frank Rizzo. Rizzo is Italian, Good is African-American, and the area where this is going on is an African-American stronghold. It's in the middle of Good's voting block, and so he wants to use kid gloves. He does not want the white SWAT guys kicking in doors and getting into hand-to-hand combat, whether they're right or wrong. He doesn't want that. He says, come up with a different plan. So his cronies get together, and they come up with a plan. They're going to drop military-grade explosives on the roof of the building. It'll start a fire. They're crazy, but they're not suicidal. When the fire starts, they'll have to run out of the building. It's much easier to arrest people who are running out of a burning building than it is to kick the door in and engage in hand-to-hand combat with people who are armed. So Good approves the plan. Later, there was all sorts of finger-pointing. No, I didn't approve it. You decide. Whatever it was. Apparently, he approves the plan, and it works to perfection. Helicopter comes in, drops the explosives. There's a fire, and they come running out, except they don't all make it out. That's number one. Some of them are killed. And number two, the fire burns down 60 adjoining homes, buildings in the area. So we start getting many, many calls in our Philadelphia office to represent people who were either injured or who lost their possessions in this fire. Sue the city of Philadelphia. Normally, we wouldn't take a case for somebody who just lost their possessions. It's not the type of case we handle. But once we were bringing the injury cases, to use the Talmudic term, derech agav, we would bootstrap the property damage claims, and so we ended up with a few dozen of these cases. So they're moving along. Some of them are assigned to a young attorney named David, happened to be an observant Jewish attorney, and he's handling the cases. And of course, we love all of our clients. We love some even more than others. And so there's this one particular client, Ernest Bostic, and every week or two he's calling David saying, when am I gonna get my money? Bostic had lost his life possessions in his girlfriend's apartment as a result of the fire. So David's saying to him, you have to understand there are hundreds of claims. We have many of them ourselves. There are other firms, and it's going to take time. Okay, I'll be in touch. 2 weeks later, when am I gonna get my money? David would say, you have to understand. Okay, so finally one day, Bostic calls David and says, I spoke to the city guy. Well, what do you mean the city guy? The lawyer for the city. And I settled my case. What are you talking about? Who'd you speak to? And he tells him the name, and sure enough, it's the defense lawyer at City Hall against whom David is litigating the case. He says, you spoke to? He says, yeah. He says, well, what'd you settle it for? He says, $10,000, get me my money. David says, I'll find out what's going on. He calls the lawyer. He says, did you speak to my client, Ernest Bostic? The lawyer says, oh no. David, I feel so bad. Everybody knows this, right? Once somebody has an attorney, you can't talk to them. He should have checked his list and said, you're represented by Rothenberg's office. I can't speak to you. He says, I figured since he called me directly, he must be one of the pro se litigants. Pro se is Latin for knucklehead. I'm kidding. Pro se is Latin for self-represented. That's the person who thinks it's like Home Depot. Yeah, I'll just represent myself in court because it's easy. I could do that thing that Rothenberg does. What do you have to do? Okay? One of my kids said to me once, I was mentioning about, oh, it's such a hard week at work, okay? He's like, Daddy, what are you talking about? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I went to your office once. All you do is you talk on the phone and you move some papers around your desk and you type on the computer. You don't work, okay? So fine, some people represent themselves. So he says, I thought he was representing himself. I apologize, I shouldn't have spoken to him. David says, look, honest mistake, it's fine. But he said he settled the case with you. Did you settle the case with him? He said, of course not. So what's he talking about? He told me $10,000. He says, oh, I gotta apologize again. Whenever I get a pro se litigant on the phone, I always say to them, how much are you looking for? I want to document my file. So I asked him, and yeah, he told me he's looking for $10,000. David says, okay, can we settle this case? He says, of course not. He says, listen, you shouldn't have spoken to him, okay? It's a problem, right? I'm willing to forgive it, but can't you make an exception and just settle this one case for 10 grand? He says, Dave, you want to come visit me in City Hall? There are like 9 different levels of bureaucracy, okay? I'm not even sure who's going to have the final say on this one. You know what's going to happen? In 2 years, before trial, we're going to sit down, we're going to have an algorithm, we're going to have a matrix, we're going to have, this was before Excel, we're going to have a spreadsheet, and we'll figure it out. I can't settle one case, okay? David's got to tell Bostic. He calls him up, gives him the bad news. Bostic hangs up the phone, and he goes out and buys a gun because he's going to go kill the assistant city solicitor with whom he thought he had settled his case and who's now welching on the deal. So he goes to City Hall and signs in, Ernest Bostic, 12:10 p.m. And he's sitting for 20 minutes waiting for him while he's out to lunch. 20 minutes waiting with the gun in his pocket, waiting to kill him. And then he gets impatient and signs out, 12:30 p.m. And what he later told the police was, he decided that my lawyer must be in cahoots with the other guy, so I'll go kill him instead. So he comes to our office. He knows which floor David's on. He gets off the elevator. It just happens that as he walks out of the elevator, David is walking by in front of the elevator. So they lock eyes, they recognize each other. Bostic pulls the gun. David turns around and starts running, and Bostic empties the gun. 6 entry wounds, 6 exit wounds. David collapses in a pool of blood. The police arrive before the ambulance. My father's in the back of the police paddy wagon holding David's head so it doesn't bang on the metal floor of the van. They rush him into emergency surgery with the chief trauma surgeon in Philadelphia. I think the surgery was like 14 hours long. And he saves his life. He lives. I mean, God saves his life. He lives. It's unbelievable. Physically, he's fine. Psychologically, obviously, a long, long road ahead of him. So 2 days later, I'm at the time probably 18 or so. Home from college on break. So I say, you know what, I met him before. I'll go visit him. It's a nice thing to do. Not that I'm such a holy roller. I mean, not that I was like so makbid big holim, but I mean, the guy took 6 bullets. You know, my parents' firm. It would be a nice thing for me to go visit him. So I go to visit him. So I walk in. It's the middle of the day, and his parents are there. And they say, Harry, as soon as I say visit, do you mind? We just wanted to run out to get some food for ourselves and for David. Do you mind? I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. No problem. So I sit down. He's very weak, and he says, I have to tell you a story. I said, no, I just came to visit. You don't have. He says, no, sit down. I have to tell you a story. I said, okay. He says, yesterday, the day after the surgery, the surgeon came to visit me. You know, and I said to him, like, hey, when he introduced himself, I said, how do I thank the person who saved my life? He said, I'm just doing my job. He said, I just want you to know, though, that I'm not your doctor anymore. All I do are trauma surgeries. I've seen everything. I do the surgery. Sometimes someone doesn't make it. Sometimes they do, like you. If you make it, like you did, now you have a different doctor. Dr. So-and-so, he's your doctor. You've met him, right? Yes. He says, I just wanted to come to talk to you because I've been doing trauma surgeries in Philadelphia my whole career, over 25 years, and I thought I had seen everything. I've never, ever seen a case like yours. You know, you probably heard by now, you took 6 bullets, and one of them grazed your spinal cord, and one of them grazed your heart, and others grazed other vital organs, and it couldn't have been any closer. Any closer, you'd have been dead or paralyzed. If you had moved differently, if you were wearing different clothing, anything would have changed the trajectory of the bullets and you would have been dead or paralyzed. So I just want you to know that you had a guardian angel watching over you, and you're going to be fine. Physically, you're going to be fine. So I said, this is unbelievable. He said, well, there's more to the story, but I didn't tell the doctor because he wasn't Jewish. I said, yeah. He says, that morning, I left for work, and I got in my car, and I turned it on, and I put it in park, and I was about to drive away, and all of a sudden, I said to myself, wait a minute, did I put my tzitzis on today? He says, and I checked, and I wasn't wearing my tzitzis. He says, so I said to myself, Dave, you could go to work one day without your tzitzis on. So I put my foot back on the accelerator, and then I said to myself, Dave, how can you go to work without your tzitzis on? So I put the car back in park, and I went into my apartment, and I took off my suit jacket and my tie, and I unbuttoned my shirt and took it off, and I put on my heavy wool pair of tzitzis. I put my shirt back on, and my tie back on, and my jacket back on, and my overcoat back on, and then I went to work. He said, Harry, the doctor said if I had done anything different with my clothing, I was like, Dave, I got it, okay? And I can assure you two things. Number one, at the time that I was listening to the story, there is no way I was wearing my tzitzis. You know, just that time in my life. There's no way. Yarmulke, maybe, baseball cap, probably. There's no way I was wearing tzitzis. Since then, unless I am in the swimming pool or the shower, you can come by and do what the Rebbeim used to do when I was younger, go like this. You know, you can, you know, making like they're making, you know, kind of see, hey, how you doing? Let me give you a neck massage. Actually, let me just check if you're wearing tzitzis. Okay, yep, I feel them there, right? You can come by and check. I wear my tzitzis. Now, I can't tell, I'm not telling you that if you wear tzitzis, it's like Kevlar body armor. You'll bring me a raya from any observant Jewish soldier or non-observant Jewish soldier in Israel who happened to be wearing tzitzis, who could bring me a raya from the Tree of Life Synagogue, two of the guys who were handing out the talisim, right? I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is, and I've seen this time and time again, this is an example on steroids, is that very often, if you do something extra for God, he does something extra for you. So I can't tell you why this happened. For all I know, the reason it happened was so that I could tell the story over to the, I don't know how many thousands of people that I've told this over to before. And I'll tell you, I'll leave you with one last story, because that story happened to someone else. I want to share one that happened to me. Thankfully, I did not get shot. Everybody was fine. It was just you know, more annoying than anything else. But I'll leave you with this story because it's meaningful to me, because it makes the point that when things happen, everything happens for a reason. And although we don't ever know what it is, it's presumptuous to think, right? I know why God did that. No, you really don't know. But on the other hand, I'm supposed to think, you know, what message might God be sending me, and how might I, you know, learn from that or work on myself? Like, if you think through something, and by thinking it through, the possibility that spurs you to work on yourself, that's a good thing. So I represented a woman who was taking her evening, actually not even, it was a late afternoon jog along the West Side Highway in Manhattan. Beautiful scenic run. And so when she finished her jog, she was coming back. So her back is now to the Hudson, and she's crossing the bike path. So at the bike path, there are all sorts of signs. Watch out, pedestrians. There are written signs on the ground. There are signs on the, you know, standing signs. And this bicyclist, in full, you know, leotards, etc., head down, helmet on, is gunning it, and he just blows her up. He hits her very hard enough that there was no eyewitness, no one saw the contact, but there was an ear witness. I don't know if that's a word, I may have just made it up. The ear witness was a person who said, she told the people that came to, whoever it was that wrote up the report, the cop who wrote the AID report, that she heard the sound of my client's head hitting the pavement. She was hit very, very hard, okay? At the time, she was an information architect, making $100,000 a year, building websites, was in her 30s, was not able to go back to work, saw a slew of doctors. Her doctors agreed she's got a mild traumatic brain injury. The manner in which it manifested itself was highly unusual. So, for example, she had certain things that you would expect that were typical, like forgetting things. She had extreme OCD. She had extreme difficulty making any decisions. She would show up for her deposition, which, by the way, took 22 days, because each day we could only do like a half an hour to an hour. And she would always have like 3 cups of coffee, because one was black and one was sugar and one was sugar and milk, because each sip, I guess she couldn't decide. Very, very strange. Fluorescent light drove her crazy. So when we took the depositions, we had to turn off the lights in the conference room. We had to close the shades. We had to bring in a lamp for the court reporter so the court reporter could see what she was typing. And that still wasn't enough. She would wrap a scarf around her eyes to block out the light, okay? Photophobia. Yet, they had a video of her walking in the street outside on a sunny day, you know, with the sun shining. Now, we're of course going to bring in a doctor to talk about, yes, photophobia as a result of a traumatic brain injury. Fluorescent lights are very different than natural lights, but if you're on the jury, who knows, you're going to buy it or not. Their doctors that examined her said, they all agreed, she has significant problems. The significant problems are, I'm going to only quote this because this is what the defense attorney used to say, is that she's out of her mind. So this isn't injury related. She's just crazy. She's crazy. She's just an absolute nut. It has nothing to do. She got hit. We're not debating that. You won 50 grand to go home. But her behavior is so aberrational. It's not as a result of traumatic brain injury. She just you know, it's just bananas. She would get very tired. She would need to take a nap after the depositions. So this was a not infrequent occurrence. This is a little uncommon. I work with both my parents. They're attorneys. I'm the oldest in the family. The next 6 siblings are all lawyers, all in the firm. So that's 7. The youngest is not. She's a nurse practitioner. So you've got 7 siblings, 2 parents, all in the same firm. My father's in Philadelphia. I'm in New York with my 3 younger brothers. So my father bops in to visit, you know, every once in a while. So I had finished the deposition, and she asked me, you know, do you mind, can I go to your office to close my office? I said, you know, no problem, okay, like I'm, you know, give her her privacy, it's fine, I'll work in the conference room. So she'd gone to my office to take a nap. My father had then come in to visit, I guess, during the deposition, and I didn't realize, I don't know if I didn't realize he was there or forgot to tell him. So my father goes into my office, comes in the conference room like he's seen a ghost. It's like, Dad, what is wrong? He's like, Harry, there's a woman sleeping on the floor of your office. I was like, yeah, it's just the client. She just, you know, needs to take naps. Okay, so highly unusual. So we're heading into a mediation, and the possibilities on this case are endless. If a jury doesn't believe her, they could give her nothing. They give her a hole in a bagel. I don't know, 50 grand, 75 grand, 25 grand. If a jury believes her, which I did, by the way, they could give her a massive amount of money. She can't go back to work. And look at all this cascade of issues that she has. So I spend an enormous amount of time before the mediation, because I know she can't make up her mind, going through with her the different possibilities. I said, look, we've been litigating this case for a few years. They've always said we will never pay you. But now it's a mediation, which means they're saying, you know, we might pay you, okay? They're gonna make an offer. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. This might be a complete waste of time. So I want you to think it through, and here is my recommendation, okay? If they offer you less than $1 million, I think you should reject it. If they offer you $1.5 million, that'll put $1 million in your pocket, just about, because my fee is a third, $500,000. I think that is way too much to risk. If you can clear $1 million, I don't think you should risk it. And if it's between $1 million and $1.5 million, I leave that to you. I'm fine either way. In other words, if you want to go forward, I'm fine going forward. If you want to take it, I'm fine with you taking it. That's my recommendation. Think about it. So I'd call her a day or two later. She'd ask me the questions again. I'd go through everything from the beginning. She'd, okay, let me speak to my family members. It's fine. This went on for weeks. And I knew this was going to happen because she can't make up her mind. Finally, about a week, a few days before the mediation, I call her up and I say, did you decide yet? Because just so I have some idea of where we're holding. She says, yes, I'm taking your recommendation. I said, meaning what? She said, if it's $1.5 million, I'm going to take it. I said, okay, all right. I said, what if it's between $1 million and $1.5 million? She said, I don't know that. I'll have to decide. I said, okay. So of course I'm saying it's tefillah starting then. Hashem, let me get $1.5 million, okay? So we go into the mediation, and the mediation, you know, just to do a shortened version, it's kind of like selling Elias on, you know, on the holidays, okay? You know, do I hear 100? Do I 150? You know, Tzveitamol, Drittamol, okay? 2, 350, so that's 450 in the back, 550, 650, 750, 850, 950. We get to the $1 million mark, which is not so simple, and we cross it. We cross the magic line, and we're at $1.1 million. And we're at $1.2 million, and we're at $1.25 million, and things are slowing down. At $1.3 million, and the judge calls me in, a judge whom I know very well, very, very well-respected judge, and he says, Harry, I have their final number. I said, yeah? He says, $1.4 million. I'm thinking to myself, okay, Hashem, look, I know I've had a long-standing debate with my Rav. I think you have a sense of humor. He doesn't think it's appropriate to say that, okay? But this is, I mean, come on. You got to find me another $100,000 here. I mean, come on. I can't go back in there at $1.4 million. We're so close. So I say to the mediator, you can't get another $1? He says, no. I say, can I speak to them? He says, let me ask them. So he goes into the room, asks the lawyer and the 3 different adjusters. There were different layers of coverage. And they say, sure, they'll speak. They're not going to pay anything more, you know, but they're willing to speak to you, okay? I go in to speak to them, right? And I say to them, look, we've had long debate about this, about how injured she is or isn't. You've come here today absolutely in good faith. I mean, we never had any discussions beforehand. I'm very pleased with where we are, but I cannot settle this case. And I told them this story exactly like I told it to you. I said, I've been sitting with her for more than a month going through the numbers, and we are so close. If you can get me a little bit more, I will deliver a settled case to you. If not, I can't. You gotta go back, don't say no. And I told them, I looked them in the eye. I said, I need, how much? Anybody paying attention? How much? Thank you. $1.6 million. I need $1.6 million. Now, why did I say that? Because I know what happens. When you get that close, all of a sudden, it happens time and time again. You look up, and there's Shlomo HaMelech coming in the room with his sword. There he is. King Saul, how are you? What are you going to do with that sword? What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to cut the baby in half. Right? That's what happens. I know if I say 1.5, they're going to come back and they're going to say, okay, $1,450,000. So I say 1.6 because I got to get to 1.5. But I guess I was very convincing, and they come back and they say, you got it, 1.6. I go into the room, and you know, I'm not doing the full happy dance, but I might have been doing a little bit of a, you know, and I say to her, I have fantastic news. We have a settled case, $1.6 million. And she says to me, how much time do I have to decide? I say, well, what do you mean? She said, well, do I have to decide right away? I said, well, decide what? She's like, whether to settle. I said, well, I don't understand. Remember you called me last week? You said that you would take $1.5 million. This is $1.6 million. $1.6 million is more than $1.5 million. She said, no, I know. I just want to speak to my father. I said, okay, no problem, fine. She said, could you excuse me? Okay, I leave the room, all right? Okay, I go back, then I say, no, we're going to be good. She just wants to speak to her, you know, to her father. We should be fine. Yeah, we're going to be fine. 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes, I go in, I poke my head in. She says, I'm speaking to my brother. Could you excuse me? No problem. Okay, I walk out, fine. Another 15 minutes go by, okay, you know, I poke my head in. I'm speaking to my sister. Could you excuse me? No problem, okay. After half an hour, 40 minutes, I went there and said, listen, you know, she does it difficult. I'm confident it's going to happen. She just wants to talk it through again with her family members. We're going to be good. We had started this mediation at 9:30 in the morning. It's now, after half an hour or so, 45 minutes of this going on, it's about 5 o'clock, 5:30. The judge, understandably, he's done everything he could do. He's exhausted. He says, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I have written up the settlement agreement at $1.6 million. I have written down how much each carrier is going to pay. I am leaving. There's nothing more I can do. If she doesn't sign it, rip it up. And if she signs it, then, you know, there's somebody here all night. You can stay as long as you want. They'll just give it to them. They'll copy it. Each of you take a copy, you know, and leave a copy for me. Okay, great. So he leaves. 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. At 7:30, I go back in to check. She's taking a nap. Okay? I have to go back in and tell the 5 or 6 people that are there on the other side, she's taking a nap, okay? One guy, I can't repeat what he said when I gave this news, okay? Somebody in the other room at least said, well, maybe she'll wake up refreshed and ready to settle the case. Okay, remember, we've been there since 9:30 in the morning, okay? It's 8 o'clock. And I'm checking in. Who he's with? My dad again, my dad's friend. I knew her dad's friend. He was a lawyer, actually, that I used to work with. And so I called him up. I said, do you know what's going on? He says, Harry, I've spoken to her 12 times in the last 3 hours. I said, if there's anything, he says, I'm trying my best, okay? So at around 9 o'clock, I go in to check, and she says, okay, you know, we're settled. So we sign the document, and I bring it into them, and I show them, and there's a big, you know, there's a whoop of relief and celebration. We settle the case. Fine. I'm driving home, and I say to myself, I call my wife, who I'd long ago said, you know, I don't know, put dinner away. I ate at the mediation because we ordered in food once we realized how late it was going. I said, I'm just too punched. She's like, what in the world? I said, the good news is we settled. I'll tell you the whole story when I get home. I'm just too punch drunk. So when I got home and I told her the story, I said, I was thinking about this on the ride home from Manhattan to Passaic, where I live. And I said, everything happens for a reason. And although I don't know why Hashem, you know, worked it out this way, I feel that there's some message here for me. Because, you know, whatever money I'm supposed to make, I'm going to make the same amount of money. Like, we could have had it signed at 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 9 o'clock. I mean, hours. It's like an extra, 4.5 hours. What is going on? So I said, I thought about this on the way home, and I think that maybe, never know for sure, that maybe Hashem is saying to me, you know, you should be really thankful. You know, you take things for granted. Every morning, after I come home from davening and from learning, I make very quick, almost instantaneous, bold decisions. I open up the pantry in the kitchen, and we have a very big display of different cereals. Unfortunately, and infuriatingly, no matter how many times I tell my kids, can you just finish the box before you open the next one? No, they have to open every single box. There are always like 6 or 7 open boxes. I walk in, and there's no hesitation at all. Cornflakes today. The next morning I walk in, today is a Rice Krispies day. The next morning I walk over, it's a Honey Nut Cheerios day. So I was thinking, maybe Hashem is saying to me, hey, you take it for granted. This woman she cannot even walk into the breakfast pantry and make a decision. You should be thankful that you're able to do that you're not like her. I said, you know what, it's a nice lesson. I'm gonna think about that. So I went to sleep that night, and I woke up the next morning, and immediately, I do some of my best thinking while I'm asleep, I think. I am really bothered when I wake up the next morning, because I say to myself, that can't possibly be the lesson that Hashem was trying to tell me, because I get that lesson every day. I have clients that can't walk. I have clients that can't see, clients that can't eat, clients that can't think. That's not the lesson. Well, that's the lesson. You should be thankful that you can choose a breakfast here. I have clients that make me thankful that I can walk, that I can talk, that I can see, that I can hear. That can't be the lesson. Every one of my clients can give me that lesson. So I thought about it more, and I was thinking that maybe the lesson was the exact opposite. That I spent hours looking at this woman going, oh, glad I'm not like that. Thank you, Hashem, that I'm not like that. Thank you, Hashem, that I'm able to make decisions. Maybe Hashem was hinting to me, you know, wouldn't it be nice if you were a little more like her? Wouldn't it be nice that the next time you were thinking about not doing something you're supposed to do, right? Or you're thinking about doing something that you're not supposed to do, maybe you should say to your Yetzer Hara, you know what? How much time do I have to decide? Can I get back to you on this? Let me call my dad. Let me call my brother. Let me call my sister. Let me ask my wife. Let me call my Rav. Maybe, pal, you should be more like her. And instead of making decisions of committing errors of omission and commission, stop and don't rush into it, right? Now, I can't tell you that that's why it happened, but to me it was a tremendous Musar Haskell. And I think that when you see the world that way and you're constantly stopping and thinking, like, again, we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. I can prove to you very quickly we don't know for sure. When Mordechai is trying to convince Esther to go in to speak to the king, right? He says to her, go in. She says, Mordechai, I haven't been called in 30 days. Sit tight. The Gezerah is like a year away. We have time. Like, don't rush it. He said, no, you got to go in. He says, if you don't go in, relief and deliverance, Revach will come from somewhere else. He says, but you and your family, they'll be wiped out, okay? And then he says to her what he should say to her, and Esther, that's why you're there. Hello? There's a decree to annihilate the Jewish people, and the queen herself is a Jewess, and the king who signed it doesn't know it. That's why you're there. Instead, you know what he says to her? Umi Yodea. And who knows? Maybe that's why you're there. Possibly that's why you're there. In other words, the key moment that he should really stick, like said, that's why he's saying to her, look, at the end of the day, I think so, but you got to think so also. We don't know. We never know for sure. But even though we never know for sure, if we can rip a lesson out of something as a maybe, we're not presumptuous enough to say, I know why God did that, but maybe as a lesson, then I think it's worthwhile. So thank you very much for listening. And in particular, as I said before, giving me an opportunity to speak to a live audience. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to stick around if anybody has any questions. I don't know what the standard is, if I should wait up here or take them from the audience, whatever you prefer. I defer to the Rav. But thank you for listening.
All I can say is thank you on behalf of all of us here and all of us who are going to be seeing you on this recording. And thank you not only for inspiring us, but also thank you for waking us up, because you are alive. And that's really very, very exciting to be in the presence of somebody who's fully alive. Yasher Koach.